Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is the 260th Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I've put onto YouTube. This battle was fought between 5 and 6 years ago and was supplied by Brotherhood member Uther. Okay, the first teammate is actually Brotherhood member Uther, who's bought the Rome BROTHERHOOD faction. If you notice there, I think he's only bought 11 infantry to this battle. And I think he's bought 3 archer units as well. And then he's got 6 cavalry, he's got the 5 Praetorian cavalry, and he's bought the old school Roman armoured cavalry general there. And if you look carefully, you can see that that Roman armoured cavalry general is fully upgraded. So that's 3 experienced stripes, gold shield, gold attack. That makes this this unit that has already got great specifications a real elite unit and very difficult to kill. And knowing how well Uther uses that unit, I dare say we'll see that unit put to good use. His next teammate is Brotherhood member TR. He's called himself Timid in this battle, but it is Brotherhood member TR, and he has bought the Rome SBQR faction. Just like to draw your attention to, he's only bought 4 cavalry units in this army. Their third teammate is the Huns Colts Nom. Now, I used to play Barbarian Invasion quite a lot, and I became friendly with the Huns clan and very often invited them onto RTW to come and play some battles with us, and this is one of the Huns clan. As you know, the Huns are a cavalry faction on the Barbarian Invasion game, and I think this particular Huns member doesn't play RTW much, so that's why he's chosen the Greek Cities faction, a very forgiving and tough faction. Okay, their fourth teammate is Brotherhood member Cormac, a Brotherhood veteran, the same as Uther and TR, and as you can see, he's bought the Macedon faction. Just like to draw your attention there, I think he's only bought 1 cavalry unit, and the rest of his army are pikemen and no archers. So an unusual Macedon army to bring. You usually bring archers to cover your pikes. So there's that army there, team there, very experienced team. But you wait till you see the other team. This could be a classic battle. And here is that other team. We have King Cataclysm, but he's also known as Brotherhood member Sacred. As you know, Sacred was in the Brotherhood, and then he moved to the Kings, and then he's moved back to the Brotherhood. And he's bought the Carthage faction there. If you notice, no cavalry or slingers in his army. It's just all pikemen. His teammate is Brotherhood member Cal, who's bought the Rome Scipio faction. And then their next teammate is RTW player called Ace Blazer, and if you notice, he's got 6 companion cavalry there, sacred band cavalry there, and the rest of his army are pikes and a couple of slinger units there. Just like to draw your attention to his pikes units upgrades. Can you see that his pikes are upgraded with 8 upgrades, and in some cases 9 upgrades? So some of his units have got 3 experienced stripes, gold shield, gold attack, maximum upgrades, and some of them have got 8 upgrades, which is 2 experienced stripe, gold shield, gold attack. So those sacred band pikemen there are very formidable, and it'd be interesting to see how well they do in the battle. And their fourth teammate is the co-founder of the Brotherhood all the way back in January 2005, and that's Brotherhood member Conan, who's bought the Rome Julio faction there. Just like to draw your attention to that very, very strong formation, and he's got 4 archers there. And if you notice that Conan has also bought the old school cavalry armoured general. There's the archers there, so got 4 archer units, and there's his cavalry general there. Once again, his general there is fully upgraded, so he's got the same upgrades on his cavalry general as Uther's got on his. So this battle, as I say, has got the ingredients to be a really classic battle. As I say, fought between 5 and 6 years ago. Should be a great one for you to watch. At this stage of the battle, I thought I'd draw newer players to RTW's attention to this particular part of the battlefield. Can you see there, you can see only Cormac's general unit there. Now you know that his pike army is in that area, but you can't see it. And the reason for that is because those units are hidden in that darker area. Can you see the darker long grass area of the battlefield? and that's where the rest of his units are hidden there. You can only see the general in the long grass, the rest of his units are hidden. Great for ambush tactics there. If you can hide units in that long grass and then bring them out when the enemy doesn't know they're there, as I say, you can do great ambush tactics. You can see how dark the long grass is right across that part of the battlefield. There you go. Can you see that Cormac's just moved his army there? And the moment you move your army, you obviously come into view there. But I thought that was just something good for new players to see. You might not realise that those darker areas on the Flatlands maps are long grass areas where you can hide units and spring ambushes from. Okay, at this very early stage of the battle, can you see that King Cataclysm, or Brotherhood member Sacred, is moving his Carthage Sacred Band over here to face Cormac's Macedon units? As a lot of you may know, usually when Carthage faces Macedon, Carthage usually wins because of the better specifications and upgrades that Carthage has got in comparison to the Macedon pikemen there. Yes, the Macedon pikemen have got longer pikes, but the Carthage specifications make up for that, and that's why Sacred wants to take Cormac on head on with his Carthage army. Remember, Sacred's army are all pikemen. He's got no cavalry, no slingers, just all pikemen, and this army I think he built specifically to take on Cormac's Macedon army. So it's kind of like if you like, a custom army for this battle that Sacred has purposely made, as I said, to take on the Macedon pikemen there. You've noticed that Cal now has moved back over from that flank, and he's moved into the right centre now to face, I think it's TR's SBQR army there. Let's say this is the very, very early stages of the battle here, and as you can see, Sacred has certainly set out his intentions there to take on the Macedon pikemen. Cormac would do well to avoid those Carthage pikemen, but we'll see how he if he does that as the battle continues there. If you notice that TR has brought a couple of his infantry out in front of his Macedon ally there, TR realising that Carthage is a very formidable force against Macedon, and probably will try and help his Macedon ally as much as he can by putting a couple of infantry units there. Right, if you notice here that Sacred's putting his piler units in open order. If you notice before that he had them in close order, and he's put them in open order now. Obviously, if you've got those piler shield units in open order, they suffer less damage against piler hits. Can you see Conan using his cavalry general very aggressively there, looking to go for those archers, but he can see that Uther's cavalry general with the same upgrades is just sat there waiting for him to come on through that little gap, and I think Uther's cavalry would have gone for Conan's cavalry general there. So I say this is a very early stage of the battle here. If you notice that Cormac is moving his Macedon units out towards Cal's infantry, and Cal wisely is moving his infantry back, because you remember what we've talked about in battle videos before, Roman generals don't really like to take pike units on head on unless they've got a plan of some sort, you know, where they can pin the pike units, where they get units around the rear or the flank. So Cal, I think, made a wise tactical decision there in pulling that Scipio infantry back from the Macedon pikemen there. As I say, if you notice that TR is around his Macedon ally, very close to those Macedon units there, because he knows that if Carthage actually engages the Macedon units, that his Macedon teammate will need some assistance there, and that's why he's got those SBQR Roman units there kind of embedded. Right, can you see Conan going into the flank of those Macedon units with his cavalry general there? Very, very aggressive use of that armoured cavalry general into the flank of those moving pike units there. I bet he caused some good casualties there. As I say, these armoured cavalry generals we used to bring 9, 10, 11 years ago as a normal thing to do, and then, as I say, about 8 or 9 years ago we mostly changed to infantry generals. Right, let's try to draw your attention here to Uther doing a left flanking action here. An aggressive left flanking action. Let's just pause the game for a second. Let's say you can see Uther bringing his infantry and cavalry and those archers around the flank there. Of course, if you can get archers around the flank, you can then start shooting into the side of enemy units there, causing them a lot of casualties. So that's a nice aggressive flanking attack there by Uther, forcing Cal to turn to face him, disrupting the enemy battle line a bit. As you can see here, Cormac is moving his Macedon pikemen forward towards those Carthage pikemen there. As I say, you can see that TR has put an SBQR unit in between them. It wouldn't surprise me if you put that unit into Testudo. Just like for you to see the difference in length of the pikes there, how long those Macedon pikes are in comparison to the Carthage pikes there. As I say, TR has got his SBQR army very close to his Macedon ally there to help him if necessary. Now if you notice here, can you see there's a gap between the Huns Greek cities guy and the Macedon faction there. Now I just wonder whether that enemy Carthage guy is going to try and exploit that by getting in between them. And as I say, over here on the right flank you can see that the Carthaginian cavalry are out on that far right flank there, ready to strike when the Carthage general feels it's time to do so. So there's a general overview. It's still a very early stage of the battle really, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. And as I say, Uther's strong flanking attack here looks good. Okay, so you can still see Uther's continuing that left flanking action. Of course, what he'd like to do is get so far around there, he'd like to probably get in behind some engaged enemy troops there. As I say, he's forced Cal back there to face his attack on this left flank. Right, can you see that the Carthage general, Sacred, now has moved his Sacred band forward there towards the Macedon pikemen. As I say, TR has got an SBQR unit in between the two armies there, trying to help his ally as much as he can. But as I say, if you look at the difference in pike length there, can you see how long those Macedon pikes are in comparison to the Carthage pikes there? And that SBQR faction in between those two armies certainly looks a bit forlorn to me. But hopefully it will help the Macedon faction out a little bit. Meanwhile, over on the right flank here, can you see the Greek cities general is facing Conan's army there? But I'd just like to draw your attention to Conan's archers. Remember, Conan bought 4 archers. Now, he doesn't bring 4 archers for nothing. He knew he was fighting Macedon, so he'll concentrate his archer fire onto those Macedonian pikemen. Now, it would have been good, say, if the Macedon general had bought some archers himself to be able to counter these archers, but by just bringing all those pikemen now, he's got no counter against Conan's archers. So if you notice that Sacred has brought back his Sacred band pikemen there, just to allow the archers to cause as many casualties as he can before he moves into the attack. Just draw your attention to TR's army here is kind of at the back, watching that Carthage army in between his two allies there. Let's say, meanwhile, over on the left flank here, you can see that Uther's moving round. He'll probably have his archers shooting into the flank of the enemy there. But if you notice that the Carthage general, Sacred, has brought his pikemen over a little bit here towards this left flank, probably with a view to trying to flank the Macedon general there. If you notice that TR is bringing his SBQR army over there to support him. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if the Carthage general pulled his Sacred band units back because he doesn't want to get piloted by the SBQR infantry there. Can you see? Sacred's a bit too long in the tooth to stand there with his Carthage Sacred band and take loads of pilers. Still the danger, pulled his Carthage units back. Nice move there by Sacred. And nice move there by TR as well to support his Macedon teammate. Now it looks like Sacred's taken his pike units over to the right side of the Macedon army there, possibly with a view to attack them on that side. And there you go. See, he's took him back over there, avoided the SBQR pilots, and now are attacking the Macedon pikemen on that side. Now, as we said earlier, the Carthage Sacred band specifications are very good, and usually when Carthage faces Macedon, Carthage wins. But if you notice here, Cormac is taking on the Carthage Sacred band with his pikemen. Now, whether that's going to be a wise decision or not, only time will tell. And it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens. If you notice that the blue Scipii infantry of Cal there is supporting his Carthage allies' flank there by moving forward. If you notice, he's got that cross pilot shield formation at the front. Right, let's have a close-up look at this. As you can see there, the Macedon pikemen are now fully engaged with the Carthage pikemen here. As I said, a lot of veterans watching this who have fought with both Carthage and Macedon know that usually Carthage would beat Macedon, so it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Meanwhile, over on the right flank, can you see that the Huns clan member, who usually fights on Barbarian Invasion, very rarely fights on RTW, has taken his Greek cities army towards Conan's. But if you notice, the enemy have got Carthage Sacred band cavalry in behind the Greek cities general there. Now when you attack with Greek cities, if you attack with one unit at a time, that unit can become surrounded, and urbans kind of fight their way around the flank. So when you attack with pikes, it's best to attack if you can with like a full line to stop the enemy getting in between your units there. If you notice, the Greek cities guy is now attacking in kind of a battle line there, and Conan's pulled back a little bit, but my guess is that those Spartans will be getting a soaking of pilers. Notice the Carthage general there now is using his cavalry to take out the Greek cities' archers there. If you notice that Conan's brought his cavalry general round as well to look to take out the archers. So on this right flank, the Greek cities general is under a lot of pressure, I think, from both the rear and the front of his army. Conan pressurising him at the front, throwing loads of pilers in. He's got enemy Carthage cavalry in behind him, and Conan's cavalry general as well. So there's a lot going on the right flank. In the right centre, can you see the Carthage general there just stood with his infantry facing TR's SBQR infantry. Over in the left centre, as we saw earlier, the Macedon, helped by some of the SBQR units there, is taking on the Carthage Sacred Band. As I said earlier, Carthage usually beats Macedon, so it'll be interesting to see what happens at this particular part of the battlefield, and maybe what happens there is pivotal to the outcome of the battle. And meanwhile, over on the left flank here, you can see Uther is moving towards Cal. Uther split his army a little bit there and is moving some infantry into one part of the battlefield while he's got his main army still waiting to engage. So there's a general view of the battle. As I say, the battle hasn't been going that long so far, so there's still a long way for the battle to go yet, and it'd be interesting to see what happens towards the end of the battle there.
The leader of allies has been
Okay, so the Macedon general's just been killed. Now we know from other battle videos that Macedon's morale is not very good, and for the general to be killed, the morale is going to lower even more, and that could be bad for the Macedon faction there. Right, over here on the right flank, can you see the Greek cities generals there fighting Conan? But if you notice, Conan's making the most of the durability of his urban cohorts here. Can you see how he's moving them fast and round the flank into the rear and flank of those engaged enemy pikemen there? Conan was always a master of great tactics and manoeuvring his troops, and that was a nice little move there. Remember, on RTW, it's not all about trying to smash in the barricaded front door. If you nip round the back, you can very often find the back door open, if you see what I mean. Meanwhile, over here, can you see a lot of the Macedon pike units have already been routed? And if you notice that Cal's charged his cavalry in there to try and help with the rout as much as he can. And if you notice that Uther's bringing his Brutii cavalry around to help there.
We're under attack.
So at this stage of the battle, the left flank and the left centre of Uther's team does not look very good. Right, can you notice that Uther's charging his cavalry in there? He's probably spotted Cal's general is at the front of the fighting. Remember, we've talked about in this and other videos, if you put your general at the front, it's very susceptible to attack. Be interesting to see what happens on this left flank. Could this be pivotal to the battle? Okay, you can see that Uther's just charged his cavalry in. As he talks about in other battle videos, he's got the full cavalry charge bonus, pulled back out again, rallied, ready to charge in again. Can you notice that he split his army in two, and he's got a legionary first cohort eagle unit with one part of his army given the morale bonus. Remember, he's got the cavalry general there, so leaving the first cohort unit there gives morale to his fighting troops. Always handy to have that eagle unit there to give your troops morale. Right, can you see Uther's charging his cavalry in again? And as that cavalry hits, bang! As that cavalry hits there. Now once again, I'm sure he's going for Cal's general there. See Cal's general right at the front of the fighting. A good target for Uther's cavalry there as he charges in. As say, as we know from other battle videos, if we can kill the general, then that will lower the morale of his troops. Nice attack there by Uther. Notice how long he's leaving his cavalry in there. He didn't just go in there, hit, and pull back out. He's gone in there, left them fighting, trying to kill as many of that general unit as he can. Once again, he's pulled his cavalry back now.
Your
I always like to see people pull their cavalry back. It's like they're cocking the hammer on the rifle, and then just when they want to, they pull the trigger and the cavalry goes in. And as you can see, Uther's there pulled his cavalry back. Right, can you see? I think if you look on the battlefield now, you can see that most of the Macedon units, if not all the Macedon army, has been routed. Let's just pause the game for a second. Right, can you see that the Sacred Band... Right, can you see Uther here is still attacking Cal on the left, but if you notice the Sacred Band units are coming through from that left centre. Okay, the whole of the Macedon army has now been broken and is routed. So Uther over on the left flank now is facing Carthage, Sacred Band. You see the dead? See the dead? The piles of Macedon dead there? Can you see hardly any Carthage soldiers dead there? Big piles of Macedon pikemen there where those Carthage Sacred Band cut a swathe through them. So now Uther on the left is facing the blue Scipii Cal's army and the Carthage army that's going over there. So the left centre has been broken completely. Over in the right centre here, you can see that the Carthage general has moved some pikemen forward to engage some of TR's infantry. Remember, that's the pikemen with a really good upgrades, 8 and 9 upgrades on them. Meanwhile, over here on the right flank, you can see that Conan has basically surrounded most of the Greek city units there. As we said before, he's pinned the pike units with infantry at the front. Do you remember we talked about that? The only time you attack pikes head on is if you've got a plan. So he's pinning those pike units at the front while he's taking infantry units in behind there, so that he can attack those engaged troops from the rear. Really nice tactical move there by Uther. New players watching this, this is a great tactical move. As I say, you pin the pikemen with your infantry at the front while you take infantry around the flank and side and attack, which is what Conan's done here very effectively. As I say, new players watching this is a great example of what you can do there. As I say, you can see the Sacred Band cavalry out there, and Conan's got some cavalry units out there as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if this Greek city army was routed in not too much time. As I say, you can see all of the Macedon pikemen have gone here, and TR's army is still back here. He's still got a lot of fresh units that he hasn't used yet. He's probably thinking of a tactical long-term game here, because while everybody else is fighting and getting tired and exhausted, he's keeping those units back fresh, maybe to throw into the fray just at the right time. So I say there's a general overview of the battle at this stage. I say over on this left flank, Uther is now facing the enemy Scipii and the victorious Carthage units that are coming over. Not a lot of those Carthage units left, and they're all battle damaged, but I guess they're all going to count against Uther's attack there. Let's say Uther's got his cavalry general, he's moving around, but he's got that eagle unit there giving morale bonus to his engaged troops all the time as well. So that's a nice move there by Uther. There's a couple of TR's SBQR troops. Right, can you see Uther taking his cavalry around the flank? Right, now the Cal's general's just been killed by a pilot hit. But if you notice that Uther's got his cavalry around the back, and my guess is he's going to charge in there into the rear of those engaged troops. Bang, as that cavalry hits. Wouldn't surprise me if that caused a mass rout with that cavalry hit there, because those Scipii units have been fighting for a long time, so they'll be tired, they'll be battle damaged, their morale will be low, and as you can see, all those Scipii units now have mass routed. That was a nice tactical cavalry hit there by Uther. Let's say new players watching this, there's lots of great tactical manoeuvres and hits going on in this battle that you might be able to, if you like, to learn from as you like playing this game. So now, my guess is that those Carthage Sacred Band units that were left will start to rout because they were battle damaged, and seeing their allies rout, their morale will drop to an extent that they will probably rout as well. Meanwhile, over here on the right flank, you can see that Conan, basically, I think there's one unit of Greek cities left now, over on this right flank. Maybe one unit left that's still fighting. But they're most there. That's the one unit there. The rest of the Greek cities units have been taken out. Let's say TR's brought his infantry over here to try and shore up this right flank, and that Sacred Band cavalry has been going in. I think the guys using that Sacred Band cavalry extremely well. Some nice timed hits, some nice good tactical hits there. But over on the left flank, Uther, with the help of a few of TR's units there, has managed to rout the enemy. But as I say, just to show you that new players watching this, if you bring Macedon to the battlefield, be wary taking Carthage on head on, like, you see what I mean? You see the dead, piles of dead of Macedon pikemen there. Okay, so my guess is now that Uther's routed this this left flank, he'll start moving his infantry and cavalry over to the right to help his teammate TR over there. As I say, all of Cormac's Macedon army has now been completely routed, and it looks like all the Greek cities units have basically been routed as well now. So it's Uther's green Brutii army and TR's SBQR purple army now against Conan's red army and any Carthage sacred band. My guess is that some of those units that were routed over on that left flank may well rally. Now, do you remember we've talked about in other battle videos about chasing down routers so they don't rally? Because very often if you don't do that, they'll rally and they come back and they kind of attack you in the rear. They kind of bite you in the butt, if you see what I mean. So it's always good to chase down routers. As I say here, Conan now is forming up to face TR's army, and as I say, some of those sacred band, like I said to you, have now rallied after being routed. And they'll probably now form a bit of a pike wall there to stop Uther's army getting over to help as much as he would have liked to. Remember, when you cause units to rout, try and chase them off the battlefield if you can, because if you don't, the chances are they'll rally and then they'll come back in behind you and attack you. So as I say, those sacred band units now have moved over. He's probably formed, as I said, a pike wall there to stop Uther's units coming over. I say TR's units here are fighting. Right, can you see that sacred band cavalry? Now he's still got those cavalry are extremely strong, and he's still got 6 units of them. They are a little bit battle damaged, but they're extremely powerful. Now I'm just wondering whether the sacred band cavalry could be maybe the difference towards the end of the battle. Maybe these guys doing strategic good hits maybe could win it for the Carthage team there. Be interesting to see as the battle develops. If you notice that the Carthage generals is a cavalry unit as well, so of course he's giving morale bonus to those cavalry as they're fighting.
The enemy general is
If you notice, as I say, the Carthaginian general is charging that cavalry in everywhere, hitting units. He's trying to find weakened units, I think, because I noticed as soon as he made contact with that Brutii unit, it routed. So he must have noticed that was a very battle-damaged unit. Nice hit there by the Carthaginian general. Notice he's pulling back out again. Probably as he's pulling back out, he's looking for another target to hit. If you notice, I think that was Conan's general's just been killed. Remember, that was a fully upgraded unit, so that took a lot of killing. Right, can you see Uther's cavalry? He's only got a few battle-damaged cavalry. The Carthaginian general spotted that and has charged in. And it wouldn't surprise me if Uther's cavalry were routed here. Can you see the Carthaginian general there fighting and showing his troops there how to fight? Right, and his general, Carthaginian general, has just been killed by the Brutii cavalry. So of course Carthage morale will now lessen. But they've taken out the last of Uther's cavalry there, so Uther no longer has any cavalry units there. If you notice, he charged that cavalry over into the Brutii infantry. Now if you notice that the SBQR cavalry have got 4 units there, not doing anything at the moment, just stood there. The only reason I'm thinking that he hasn't charged into that sacred band cavalry is that maybe he's just keeping those units fresh for a later stage of the battle. Because I think a lot of you watching this would have probably thought, well, why isn't he charging those SBQR cavalry in to those companion cavalry there? He could have avoided the pikes, just hit the cavalry, but maybe he had other tactical thoughts on his mind there. As you can see, TR is moving his SBQR infantry across the battlefield. Right, can you see that the companion cavalry are charging in yet again into Uther's Brutii infantry there? Right, just pause again for a second. So to say this, you can see that the enemy team, if you like, are the red Julii and the Carthage, and Uther's team are the green Brutii and the SBQR units that are left. There's some blue Scipio units left, which I believe are Cals. They're in Conan's team there. If you notice the sacred band units here, these are the ones that rallied, I think. Some of the ones that have rallied there are fighting with Conan's units. But as I say, TR has moved some of his infantry units over there. As I say, TR is a very tactical player there, as you can see. And those 4 cavalry units he's got left, maybe towards the end of the battle, could prove pivotal. But we just have to wait and see. Notice he's charging that companion cavalry, and again, maybe it might have been worthwhile to have had a little rest those cavalry, because my guess is those cavalry are probably going to be at least tired, maybe even exhausted, and of course they'll lose a lot of their impetus if they are tired or exhausted. And if you notice there, a lot of those units routed there. It's probably a sign of how tired they were. So now, if you notice, can you see that TR now is moving his cavalry around? He saw the Sacred Band cavalry, most of them now have routed, and he's moving his cavalry around now, probably with a view to see like a weak spot in the enemy line and charge those cavalry units in. Right, let's just pause the game for a second so we can take stock of exactly what's happening here. Okay, just want to draw your attention here. Can you see how many Spartans are dead here without many enemy troops killed? My guess is that those Spartans were the ones that were piloted heavily by Conan, or Conan got in behind them and attacked them from the rear. But as you can see, there's a lot of Spartan dead there, as I say, with not many enemy troops in or around them. So I would think they must have been so heavily piloted it caused so much damage. Meanwhile, over here, can you see that the SBQR troops are attacking Cal's battle damaged infantry and the Carthage pikemen as well. I think the last two Conan's units there have just been routed, and it looks to me like there's just a Carthaginian pike general left. See how long he lasts there.
But in battle, it's beyond belief. Great gods be praised.
There he is, just the Carthaginian pike general there. He's just routed as well. So I'd have thought that would have been it there. I think Uther's team's gone on to win this battle, and I would say it would be a very close battle here as well.
Your general now lies dead because of his foolishness.
You see the piles of dead shows the intensity of the battle here. I think they're just going to. I think Uther's team's just kind of chasing down the last of the enemy routers that are left there. Here you can see there's still 3 companion cavalry that must have rallied. They'll probably look to hit weakened units there. They're going for Uther's general. Can you see Uther's general there? He probably hasn't spotted that. And bang, as that Carthaginian cavalry hits. Probably going to kill his general there. And there you go. They've just killed Uther's general. Even though their team is clearly lost, to kill Uther's general was probably he probably got a bit of a buzz from that. But as you can see, the team has clearly lost this battle. As I say, this battle was fought approximately 5 to 6 years ago on the GameSpy server. If you noticed right from the beginning of the battle there, you'll probably notice that the units have moved a lot smoother than they do on the Steam server there. As I say, there's just usually at this stage of the battle, the enemy would usually admit defeat at this stage instead of making the victorious army have to keep chasing them down. I always think it's best to, when you see that your team's lost, best to admit defeat and get on to the next battle. You see he's going for that archer unit there. 6 or 7 men in that archer unit. He killed every one of them with that cavalry hit. But maybe now he might get caught up with the SBQR cavalry chasing him down. Let's say newer players watching this, even once you've seen that your team's lost, best to just admit defeat and get back into the lobby and get another game going, because it's not worth just being chased around by the victorious enemy, and it's a bit frustrating for probably everybody in the game, because everybody just wants to get back into the lobby and get a new game started. I think it's just just some slingers left to be chased down there. Let's say this battle was extremely intense, and you can see where the intense part of the battlefield was over there on that right flank and right centre. And then when we come over to the left centre, can you see hardly any dead there at all? Very quiet part of the battlefield. But then when we come over to the left flank, you can see the piles and piles of dead of Macedon pikemen there. As I say, new players watching this, if you bring Macedon, think carefully about facing Carthage army. Right, just say that was a great battle to watch. Well done to everybody in the battle. A nice close victory there as well, as I guess a lot of you would have thought. I'd just like to draw your attention to Uther's kills there. Can you see he's only 60 short of the magic 2,000 kills? Now, bearing in mind he wasn't facing any of the big pike factions like. He's only just facing the normal size faction units there. To get that many kills was really good, so really well done to Uther to get that many kills. And also, if you notice that Sacred there, King Cataclysm, Sacred, has got 1,887 with Carthage. Okay, now I know he was facing